I just know that
I remember doing something like this before.
No. I've seen the master itself. You go through, you've got a big stand, you go through volcanoes, raise your hand. You just raise your hand with a gauntlet on it and sign in whatever you're trying to do. Just raises out of the lava. That's how he does it more than anything.
This wasn't clear then. They built it that way.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the debate. We are going to be going on to the final parts, the last two being wealth inequality, as well as questions from you, the audience. The first topic that will be discussed, as I said, is wealth inequality. The first speakers will be the college Democrats, followed by the college Republicans, followed by the Young Americans for Liberty. The question about wealth inequality is, does excessive wealth inequality exist? If so, is there a problem, and what should be done, if at all?
Yes, there's a problem, and lots needs to be done. A strong middle class can only exist in an economy where everyone plays by the same rules, from Wall Street to Main Street. The failed policies of the past decade, and more so, and hands-off approach toward the excesses of the financial industry helped create the deepest economic catastrophe since the Great Depression. In the fall of 2008, when the financial system and economy were on the verge of catastrophic collapse, the last administration put in place the Troubled Asset Relief Program. The Obama administration has ensured that big banks repay these loans with interest, and its rigorous stewardship has brought transparency and accountability to the program. We enacted Wall Street reform to end all future taxpayer-funded bank bailouts. Today, Democrats are holding Wall Street accountable, bringing new transparency to financial markets, and ending taxpayer fraud bank bailouts in the era of too big to fail. President Obama put in place new rules of the road that refocus the financial sector on getting capital and to entrepreneurs in small and mid-sized businesses to create jobs and financing to millions of families who want to buy a home or send their kids to college. The problems we are facing right now have been more than a decade in the making. We are the party of inclusion and respect differences of perspective and belief. And so, even when we disagree, we work together to move this country forward. But what is holding our nation back is a stalemate in Washington between the two fundamentally different views of which direction of America we should take. We must keep moving forward and doing the hard work of rebuilding a strong economy by betting on the American worker and investing in the growing middle class. We need a government that stands up for the hopes, values, and interests of working people and gives everyone willing to work hard the chance to make the most of their God-given potential.
The Democrats believe that wealth inequality is something that is an issue and that needs to be addressed. We will hear the argument regularly that, oh, you should just be able to pull yourself out by your bootstraps or your laces and get ahead in life. You can't do that if you don't even have shoes on. So to say that all individuals just have that ability to just overcome their social economical situation and that everybody can just pull themselves up is ludicrous to say. It's ridiculous. It's not true. There are policies that have been presented by the two presidential candidates on the Democratic Party that would like to put a speculation tax on speculation trading and speculation trading that's done on Wall Street to help balance and help pay for something like a single-payer healthcare plan. We all know that low-poverty individuals have issues paying for healthcare, and if you don't have healthcare and you have to have some type of medical emergency, you may be in debt for the rest of your life. Democrats do view healthcare as a right. They do believe family care and paid family leave should be a right to all citizens, man, woman, transgender, any of the sort. We believe in expanding Social Security by lifting the cap on taxable income above $250,000 because those individuals that have the money that can pay into Social Security should have it. The individuals that are on the low end that need that money, they're the ones that deserve a break, not the ones that are pulling in 6 figures or more or 7 figures or more per year. We also believe in something that has been proposed, the Paycheck Fairness Act, which would, I'm not sure if you know, currently in the United States, women make 78 cents on the dollar than compared to men. So that's in a land of where we claim we live in equality for every single person. That is not necessarily the case, especially when it comes to gender. We feel that we bailed out the big banks. It is time for them to help us out. The gap that has grown, the wealth inequality gap that has grown over the past 10 years since 1999, when Glass-Steagall was repealed and all the speculation trading and everything, and subprime mortgages and credit default swaps were put in, has led to disastrous policies that has created this divide between the top and the bottom. There is no middle anymore, and that's an issue that we think should be addressed because the middle class is what drives America.
Thank you. Just very quickly before we begin, I would like to ask people to please refrain from applauding in the middle of the people giving their positions. The reason being is that they aren't timed during this portion, and it is just very respectful to the speakers. Also, please try to refrain from heckling, and that is all that I will ask. Thank you very much. Now we have the college Republicans.
Many Americans have come to America seeking the American dream, and although I'm not an immigrant, I have my own personal American dream, as I'm sure many of you do as well. The American dream is based on different ideas, based on different citizens, but for most it has to be with living a life they were not able to live and achieve in their other country or previously in the past. They're able to grasp successes that they were not able to grasp before. American citizens, whether born here or an immigrant, have the right to achieve their dreams and to keep the incentives that come along with it. If a citizen has worked hard continuously and earned an honest paycheck or has been successful in their endeavors, it is not up to the United States government to create such tax burdens on their citizens and to no longer have a reward for their achievements. People take risks, and at times those risks are not in their favors and they lose out. However, when they do take risks and they are successful, those people should enjoy their rewards that come from it, which may include higher take-home pay. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one whose parents have brought them up believing that if you work hard to achieve something, you can do it. I didn't come from the best background in the world, and I'm still struggling through it every day. However, I know that if I want something, I need to work hard and I will achieve it at the time. Economic freedom should be maximized and be made more possible. People should be prospering on their own. It takes a great deal of self-discipline, saving and budgeting, working hard, and reaching out to those opportunities all around to achieve such prosperity this country has to offer. Heavy taxation on rightfully earned income is theft authorized by the American government. In a general sense, taxes should be cut to ensure working citizens are taking home more real wages than current. By relieving the tax burden, making taxes more transparent and flat for all to understand and be accounted for, and the idea of using taxes to redistribute the wealth of the United States will lead this country into more economic danger and strict limit personal freedoms. If the wealth of the United States is redistributed and it is made to level the playing field we have today, the redistribution would work for a short amount of time, but quickly fall back into inequality. Some people, no matter their backgrounds and socioeconomic status, do not understand limits when it comes to consumption, have different levels of health, and are disciplined differently amongst others. Those factors would be prevalent when it comes to the economy and what we have to offer. Now, I know that college Dems are most likely going to bring up terms of increasing the minimum wage, and this will weaken the job market and increase unemployment rate. Jobs will become outsourced, and us today, we're not going to have the experience that we need to get those jobs, and we're not going to be qualified.
So when it comes to the situation in our country, I mean, it's obviously that there are some Americans who are struggling. The disposable income of the middle class is down, and there are people who are finding it hard to find jobs that are paying them what they would like. But the solution, however, is not to increase the minimum wage. It's not to increase regulation on businesses. It's not to raise taxes on the wealthy so we can redistribute it. Rather, we should be focusing on creating an environment where higher paying jobs are more prevalent. We need to focus on creating an economy in which job creators can thrive and create those high paying jobs that people in the lower middle class or underclass need to get. It's easy to think that the government can artificially create equality. But the truth about the government is it's inefficient in a lot of things. And one thing that the government will never succeed at is creating an all-equal society through redistribution of wealth, through higher taxation on the rich, and through regulation of businesses. Our businesses create jobs, and we need to look for innovative solutions through the market to help fix the problem if you do believe there is a problem of wealth inequality.
As a closing statement, Allison and I would also really like to point out that you can bring up the 78 cents to $1 that the woman earns, but we're also up here as the only two women in this debate, and we are, saying that we don't believe in that. Hard work pays off, and
I don't believe that equal pay for men and women should be legislated by the American government.
it's just ironic we're the only women up here.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Next, we have the Young Americans for Liberty.
All right, so the question at hand is about wealth inequality in the United States. Is there too much of it? Is there a problem? What needs to be done? There is, you can measure this stuff very easily. The level of wealth inequality has gone up dramatically, really ever since the 70s is when we started on this path. And when you look at wealth inequality in different cases around the world, what you find is that that's not actually really the measure you ought to be looking for. There have been societies that have existed that have been incredibly equal, yet everybody's broke, so they're all equal in the dirt. And there have been other societies that have been wildly unequal, but your average citizen is prosperous and thriving, and it's a very wealthy society. So that's not really what you ought to be looking for in terms of determining the health or fairness or efficacy of distributing resources of your economy. What would be a much better thing to do would be to look at, all right, are there rich people who didn't earn their wealth, and are there poor people who are working hard, but they just can't break through because they don't have a shot? And that, I do think, is a big issue in this country, and is something that needs to be addressed. Thank you. If if all of the top 1% were people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, people who got wealthy by producing a product that consumers wanted and employing people, and people were willing to pay them, and that's how they got wealthy, I think that's great, and they deserve to keep every penny they made. Why shouldn't they? They made it. But when you look at the 1% in this country, that's not how most of them got there. Most of them got there with the help of government favors of one kind or another. Wall Street, for example, they get cheap credit from the Federal Reserve. The Fed gives them cheap money, it increases the money supply, inflation goes up, and all of the value in your dollars is transferred to them because they've been given the new dollars that are created. That's one of the big reasons why Wall Street is so monstrous and prolific and too big to fail. That has to stop. The defense contractors get fat contracts from the government for building stuff we don't need. That's a huge source of 1%ers with ill-gotten gains in this country. Oil companies, they get subsidies. Farmers get subsidies. I mean, as long as you have enough startup capital to go lobby, theoretically, you could get pretty heavily subsidized in this country if there's any money that they have to give you. And that's the source of a lot of the wealth inequality in this country, is not because there are sort of these evil, greedy, top hat wearing, monocle wearing capitalists that are running around just sort of stealing everybody's money in some vague, opaque fashion, as some people would like to have you believe. The reason we have such a high amount of wealth inequality in this country is because we have a central government who views its job is to manipulate and rig the economy. And they use that power quite literally to help out their buddies. Like I said, Wall Street, oil companies, defense contractors. The list is longer than I am tall of people who receive this sort of help from the government. So, in order to fix the wealth inequality problem, the first thing that has to happen is all of that has to stop. You have to stop this business of using the government as an avenue to forcibly transfer wealth back and forth between people in the country. It always ends up helping the rich because they have the most capital to go and lobby for those goodies. And that is the main reason why we're having this problem. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, and now we will once again be beginning the discussion portion of the debate. Does anyone have any pressing rebuttals or comments? I see the college Democrats over there. All right.
First of all, I want to make a comment on being the only two women up here being ironic. I think that does a great disservice to all women in general, because I know 4 or 5 college Democrats women here that I would be completely comfortable with turning my seat over to right now, and they can handle this debate. So, because we didn't do this because I believe we all agreed that we wanted to be here and do this. So, you guys wanted to be here, and
well,
you got
should
to be
have
here.
representation, right?
None of
I
that.
have one up there.
We put it out to our party, to our student org. You don't have to be a woman to represent women or women's rights. Aside from that, going back to
No, hold on. I just want to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. That's really funny because your party always comments on our party not giving women a voice, and that we have a war on women going. Right?
But your party doesn't support women in that way, and we do. Going on to what I was going to say too, the Republican Party has turned its back on middle-class Americans who built this country. Our opponents believe we should go back to a top-down economic policies of the last decade. They think that if we simply eliminate protections for families and consumers, let Wall Street write its own rules again, and cut taxes for the wealthiest, that market will solve all our problems on its own. They argue that if we help corporations and wealthy investors maximize their profits by whatever means necessary, whether through layoffs or outsourcing, it will automatically translate into jobs and prosperity that benefits us all. They would repeal health reform, turn Medicare into a voucher program, and follow the same path of fiscal irresponsibility of the past administration, giving trillions of dollars in tax cuts weighted towards millionaires and billionaires while sticking it to the middle class with the bill. But we've tried their policies, and we've suffered far too much, and they failed.
Just one more thing to comment on the risk that you get, that the college Republicans were talking about at the beginning. You said that sometimes as a business you take a risk, and sometimes those risks don't pan out, and so the idea of moral hazard. There was no moral hazard with too big to fail. We bailed the banks out. The middle class bailed those banks out. Don't say there was risk and if there's risk and you go under, you should go under, because that is not what happened, and that's not what happens. And just kind of comment on the libertarians said that the vague, opaque rules of regulation in the
That's not what I
tax.
said. I said vague, opaque, monopoly man-looking people running around taking everything's money.
Okay, yes, okay, thank you. To address that, no, there are actual individuals and corporations. If you looked at the tax code, and I think we could all agree that the tax code needs to be changed. I know Ted Cruz on the Republican Party just completely wants to get rid of the IRS. I know your guys' views on it, and we agree that the tax code is not fair. That tax code has led to this wealth inequality. CEOs are now making 10,000 times what their low-end worker, with their minimum wage worker, is making an hour. That's not in a year, that's an hour. 10,000 times what they're making an hour. The CEOs don't need those tax breaks. The individuals who are making $7.25 an hour, working 60 hours between two jobs and still not getting health insurance, those are the individuals that need those tax breaks.
So I would like to address, you were talking about too big to fail and how reckless some of these people are. That's all a product of government. Where did the bailouts come from? They certainly didn't come from other banks. I mean, they didn't come from their rich capitalists, but it came from the government. It's the government subsidizing these people that's the problem. That's something I want to make very clear to everyone here. It's not capitalism that's the problem. It's the government subsidizing their buddies that is the problem. As far as the whole tax code thing goes, if you don't have the government handing out money to people who don't deserve it, you don't need to tax it back. So, in order to make it fair. So the solution is just stop giving them this money. And if you made your money like somebody like Bill Gates or Elon Musk has with producing a product that people want, and employing people, and making the world a better place by employing people and producing all sorts of wonderful things for us to buy, why shouldn't you keep that money? It's yours, you made it. I mean, I don't think anybody should have to pay income tax. I mean, if you worked hard to get your money, and you actually generated value and contributed to the system in that process, you should be able to keep every single penny. Why the hell not? It's yours. Keep it.
I think it's working. All right, test. So yeah, I just want to bring up a couple things. So you are the 1% of the world. You go to school here. You are the 1% of the whole world. I mean, we spend, I think it's like $14,000 for in-state tuition. That's more than some people make in the entire year. That's more than some people make around the world. So I think sometimes we forget about just how awesome America is. And the college Dems touched on, like the land of opportunity, kind of pulling up your bootstraps, that kind of thing. If you look at the presidential candidates, like Ted Cruz or Donald Trump or Marco Rubio or Bernie Sanders, or all of these people, their parents were immigrants one generation ago. That idea of social and wealth mobility, in one generation they went from an immigrant to a presidential candidate. I mean, that blows my mind. I think that's that's awesome.
Yeah. The thing about the whole pulling up your bootstraps thing is, even if you're in the most desperate situation imaginable, there's always something you can do to improve your own condition. So I don't think it's particularly helpful to go around telling people who are in dire straits that they're doomed and the only way they're going to get out is if the government steals money from some people and gives it to them. There's always something we can do.
Yeah, I'd like to touch a little bit on taxes, specifically with the Republican candidates. John Kasich, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump, all three of those candidates have proposed making our tax code fair and flatter. I know Mike from College Democrats brought up that Ted Cruz has suggested abolishing the IRS. All three of those candidates not only want to lower your taxes and make taxes fair for you, but make it fair for the upper class. All of the candidates have advocated for closing loopholes for the rich and making taxes fair for everyone. They have advocated for a flat tax so that people will pay the same rate, and people will all pay their fair share, but it'll be lower. You won't be giving as much of your money to the government. You won't be giving as much money to the government, so frankly they can waste it. But all three of those candidates have proposed tax policies that will benefit all of us, whether you're in the 1% or you're at the low end of the spectrum. It'll be a fair, flatter tax code that'll help every single person in this room.
Oh my God. Yeah, one more too. The reason we harp some of the Democratic candidates harp on the higher tax code for those individuals who are making more money is because based on the need, the individuals on the lower income need their money more than the people who are making six figures do, period. You can't even argue that. And you've looked at the tax, we all know the tax code right now, currently as it is unfair and has been unfair for a long, long time. Part of the tax code is one of the main drivers of this wealth inequality gap that has grown. It's part of the reason we have these issues. And to say that, we're not trying to say that a government handout is the only way to move up in the world. That is not by any means what any of us are trying to say. We're saying that we recognize that individuals sometimes get in situations where they need help, and they should get that help.
So give it to them.
Well, all right, so we're going to give it to them, and we're going to get rid of the tax, or get rid of all taxes, all income taxes.
Individually.
How are we?
Don't steal it from other people.
But still, I still want to say, just because you guys brought it up, how are we going to run the government without taxes? Without an income tax.
Oh, well, I would like to get rid of all taxes, so I'll just answer the first question. The way we would do it is, well, first of all, in a libertarian system of government, the government would be like maybe 1/10 or 1/20th the size it is in terms of budgeting, so it wouldn't need as much money. That's the first thing you have to understand in order to put this in perspective. The way you would fund it is by charging people user fees for use of the commons, things like national waters, national airspace, national land. You want to fly a plane in national airspace, you pay for that right. You want to sail a ship in national waters, you pay for that right. And they have plenty of these assets, more than enough.
You're saying you're paying for a right. How is it a right?
No,
Rights are just...
I didn't mean that literally, I meant it figuratively. Yeah, go for it.
Can I add? So if I understand correctly, collecting more taxes and collecting all of that, the idea is that there's a trust in government that goes to the greater good. If they collect more money, if they take more money, from, whatever such space. That hasn't worked. Look at Social Security. The idea of that is for the greater good. You put more money into that. If that hasn't worked.
Works for me.
Works for a lot of people.
Won't work for me.
I believe the majority of Americans
for us.
How mismanaged has Social Security?
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Some of it being spent on Iraq, that's pretty mismanaged.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
It's been mismanaged for years and years and years. It's been mismanaged since the Vietnam War, and I think we'll all agree on that. So just to say Social Security doesn't work is ridiculous. It's the politicians who chose to dip into that Social Security fund to pay for things and not think about the long term when you pay for that. No, you have to trust them, and you can't just go and turn your back on these individuals who have been paying into this system their entire lives, and they can't just now say, oh, well, Social Security's failed. We need to turn into a private voucher system. Are you kidding me? These are individuals who've paid in this for 50 years, and now that it's been mismanaged for so long, you're going to say, oh, well, sorry, we don't have the money because we mismanaged. That's not good enough. That's not the American way.
We don't have to take some of that money out of our military expenditure on taxes and put it towards Social Security too, along with a lot of other things, including education and rebuilding our infrastructure.
U.S. just got a new Navy aircraft carrier that was that the general said they didn't want, they didn't need, and oh, guess what? It was still built. So you want to talk about wasteful spending? I mean, listen to your generals of war when they say they don't want a ship. That'd be my argument.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, is that you say the problem is the politicians dipping into this stuff. As long as it's there, there's no way to stop it. I mean, they make their own rules. They are their own boss. I mean, voting them out doesn't work. As long as the government has the power to dole out favors and dole out money and dole out its own extensions of its own power, every single man, woman, and child and their dog is going to be lining up to get their share, and it just so happens that some of us have more resources to gain access to all that stuff, and that's where all the subsidies and everything I was talking about come from. So as long as you have this big pot of money in Washington, you're not going to be able to keep it secure for Social Security or keep it secure for Medicare, keep
But
it
if you
secure
make a
for
law,
anything.
we make laws, and that they're kind of abiding. So if we would make a law that says you cannot dip into Social Security to pay for anything else.
Who's going to make it? Congress. Who can revoke it? Congress. And they will, because they want to be able to hand out the money.
That's why we need a government so small that we can barely see it, as Rand Paul was saying, right?
I believe that's wrong, because when you see inequality on the rise like it has been along with child poverty rates too, reaching 22%, and that's not going into actually talking about the actual 45% that live in low-income households. I mean, there's so many things in this country that shouldn't be that way. If we're the 1% of the world and we're treating a section of our children like that, what is that saying about us?